In today's video, we're going to be taken to the skies with Etihad aboard their Boeing 777 in their business class. We're going to be checking out the seats, the food, the entertainment, and so much more. So without further ado, you'll join me at Abu Dhabi and we'll get started together. Now, like any business class review, we're of course going to be starting off pretty soon with the lounge. Quick point before, what I would say about the transit experience at Abu Dhabi was that it was absolutely phenomenal. For perhaps this reason and this reason alone, I definitely look at Etihad into the future. The lounges were well signposted, and it wasn't long at all before I was arriving and getting welcomed in for my very first time. I have to say, of all of the lounges I've ever been in terms of first impressions, this place knocks spots out of absolutely everything. Really keen to check out a little bit more of the lounge. For now, we're heading up to the relaxation floor, so let's see what it's like. As you're already no doubt getting an idea of, the lounge itself plays over a number of different floors with some fantastic views out over the concourse and onto some of the runways. I was really lucky on that day arriving into the lounge when it was gloriously quiet, but I have to say on this particular visit it never really got that much busier. That's something I'll touch on a little bit later on. In terms of some of the general orientation of the lounges, the floors themselves do play host to some of the major parts of the lounge, so we're actually going to start off the review in detail by firstly taking a look at the roof lounge, which is up on the 3rd level. Now, in terms of what goes on up here, probably the most impressive part was the bar. There was some food facilities, and that's something that we'll check out briefly, but actually the main food facilities themselves are down on the very first floor. But the bar itself, my goodness, that looked absolutely fantastic. Number of areas where you could sit down and enjoy a drink whilst looking out over, once again, those brilliant views. Especially as someone who's using a lot of the Heathrow lounges at the moment, one thing that I appreciate more so than anything else is a nice quiet lounge. I'm not sure whether I've just lucked out with the time of day, but it's incredibly quiet here. I'm actually going to be here for the next 6 or 7 hours or so a good opportunity to get a little bit of work done. So we'll see how busy it gets as time goes on, but for now it's absolutely glorious, I have to say. Next up, I'm going to grab a quick shower. Wow, my goodness, were these facilities absolutely fantastic. Yes, in such a modern and opulent lounge, expectations were understandably very high, but upon walking into the showers, you're greeted with an abundance of marble. Everything was perfectly put together. You had access to everything that you needed, from shaving kits, toothbrushes, etc, etc. It really was a wonderful way to freshen up between flights. But of course, showers aside, no lounge review would ever really be complete without a trip to the buffet. Now, as previously mentioned, most of the food facilities take place down on the ground floor. That's as you access the lounge, you'll head on over to the left. Now, in terms of layout of this, it was all around the principle, almost like an Arabic market. It's one of the most unique food setups I've ever seen in any lounge, but my goodness, did it work well. They had a number of chefs on hand. It really felt quite like, almost like live cooking stations. You had those interactions with the people responsible for delivering the food to you. Everything was wonderfully on point, and once again you had those fantastic views out of the lounge whilst enjoying the food. I went for a couple of bits. I didn't want to eat too much. We will be, of course, indulging on the flight, but that dessert, my goodness, was every bit as good as it looked. For now though, however, it's time to head to our aircraft and jump on board the 777. Alrighty, so that's me arrived at the gate here. Looks as though we've been swapped onto the 777 today. I was expecting the Dreamliner. 777, as I understand it, it's a little bit more old hat with Etihad. The good news is that we're in seat 5A, which is right at the very front of the business class cabin, in a very small private little cabin with just the 2 rows. So that should go down really very nicely indeed. Don't worry too much, however, about the aircraft type. As part of this trip, I'm doing loads with Etihad. We'll get to check out loads of their different aircraft so you can see the various different reviews of those as they go live on the channel each week. Should also say, if this is your first time tuning into the channel, hit that subscribe button and YouTube will help you keep fully up to date with those new videos as they go live. But for now, let's jump on board and check out what life is like aboard the 777, I think, with Etihad. Alrighty, so exciting times on the channel. This is the first time that I've bought this one too. It was actually my very first time ever flying Etihad business class, so frankly I couldn't wait to jump on. Those huge first class seats greeted us as we jumped on, but it was back in the business class, of course, where we're seated today. I quite liked the staggering of the seats. Truth be told, that does mean that you do need to be a little bit careful, and ideally it would always be good to get one by the window, so do look out for that on the seat maps if indeed you're flying it. In terms of the seats design, yeah, this by far and above is the oldest business class in their long haul fleet, and it definitely looked it. But to be honest with you, when it comes to global business class standards, my goodness, it was still really very good. Now I'm putting a little bit of footage across a couple of different flights in front of you just to really maximise that outlook. I sat in a couple of different locations across the two flights. This is the larger of the two cabins, the main one, and as I said a moment ago in that piece to camera, if you can get in that smaller, more private cabin at the front, that's definitely the one that I'd go for. Alrighty, so that's us on board with Etihad. It's a little bit old hat as expected, but actually this seat would be my pick of all of the seats on board, as fully expected as well. It's really nice and spacious, right up against the front next to the first class, which is great. It's got 3 windows, so a fantastic view out. So the next couple of minutes we'll take a bit more of a look around. Now before I could show you much of the seat, it really was a case of a procession of gifts. There was hot towels, slippers, amenity kits, so much. We'll get into that in a moment. Whilst we do have a couple of minutes together, I'll show you a little bit around. So firstly, starting off with those seat controls, a little bit old hat, yes, but all within easy reach, so it gets a thumbs up from me on that front. Good to see the air vents. It's surprising just how many modern business class products don't have those, and lots of charging within easy reach. It was a thumbs up from a practicality front at least. Alrighty, so pre-departure drinks coming around, so cheers. Here's to what's going to be an interesting ride. And yes, as you'll notice, no alcohol in that shot, but I promise lots throughout the review. Alrighty, so I promised some alcohol on board Etihad, and I plan very much on delivering. We're going to kick off with the champagne, so let's see how this goes. Very lovely, but very good indeed. One aspect I additionally liked about the seat was the abundance of storage areas, all within very easy reach. A little area under the armrest, and then another area again above. Well, a few minutes in and the gifts just keep on coming. I'm not really sure what's going to come next, but otherwise there's a bit of a pre-departure service. It's been pretty decent so far, but let's see what else arrives. As I already mentioned, there was so much that was coming along to the seat from the cabin crew. Those slippers looked of really decent quality. There was then also some facial mist which came around, so when in Rome, do as the Romans do, I guess. Yeah, it didn't go so well at first, but you can see there I was fully misted up and ready for departure. Without further ado, we'll push back and take to the skies, and I've got a little piece left in for the Av Geeks. Enjoy the takeoff, guys. Oh, they may well be showing their age, but the Boeing 777s certainly deliver an interesting takeoff experience, and of course it wasn't long before those big old engines were propelling us up into the UAE skies with some really interesting and beautiful views down over Oman as we headed southeast across to Asia. It was an absolutely beautiful day in the end, and it was a much more special departure than really I was imagining on what was quite a dusty old afternoon in Abu Dhabi. Now, all things in-flight review will kick off firstly with a look at the toilets. Now, in terms of sizings, these were very standard. A few nicer touches, of course, as you'd expect, being the business class, but nothing super special on the bathrooms front. After I got back to the seat, it was a good opportunity to check out the amenity kit. In all honesty here, given some of the additional bits and pieces, shall we say, that are delivered along the way from the cabin crew, the kit itself is relatively empty. What you do get is this nice little bag. Some of those lotions and potions, as you'd fully expect would have been contained, do come, as I say, separately, and that's yet another of those little gifts from the crew, which was a touch that I thought was really very nice. In terms of the overall quality then, when everything was together, yeah, this would be well up there with something that you'd expect from the likes of Emirates, or even perhaps Qatar Airways. Now, in terms of the flow of the flight, something that I thought was really interesting from Etihad is they do a dine-on-demand service. So that gave me the opportunity to do this flight completely back to front with how I usually do it with you all, and actually get some sleep up front. Now, the beds I thought were wonderfully comfortable, really spacious, plenty of knee room, with this being a slightly more old school business class experience. And yeah, overall, in terms of space, in terms of comfort, I thought the bed scored really very nicely indeed. You can see just how happy that made me. After a few incredibly refreshing hours sleep, it was then time to jump on up and get stuck into the dining experience. Now, pulling back that front page of the menus revealed a really very interesting drinks menu. I thought those wines, many of which we'll try a little bit later into the review, were absolutely fantastic, and definitely spoke of a menu where a lot of effort and frankly investment had gone into it. Turning the page then over onto the food options, revealed no fewer than 4 choices for the main courses. On the main meal front, I think this is a really good standard to hit when it comes to the business class. Ensures plenty of choice right the way across the board, and plenty of other things to go alongside as well. You can see over to the right hand side some slightly softer beverages. Before the main meal service comes around, there's then some nuts that come around. These were served warm, always a little touch again that I really like. And here was my starter. Certainly, in terms of first impressions, what a start. I was clearly in a bit of a fishy mood on that particular flight because I opted for the tuna for my starter and then the sea bream for the main course. I must say, in terms of both the presentation and the taste, it'd be right up there with some of the best business class catering I've ever had. As a slight negative, for one moment, I thought the serving of everything on the tray was a little bit premium economy-esque, you could say. I think comparing to the likes of Qatar Airways, where everything is served straight down onto the dinner cloth with a little candle on the side, was slightly higher end in terms of the overall feel of everything, but overall I thought it was really very good. Now, heading into the alcohol front, we'll firstly start things off with a quick tasting of this white wine. As ever with Etihad, a very generous portion, but what about the taste? And yes, this was blisteringly good. It's rare that you get particularly phenomenal wines in a business class, but my goodness, did they deliver on this front. As I then continued through the meal service, it was course after course of deliciousness, and of course, good pairings of alcohol on the way back, of course. On the way out, I just settled for this hot chocolate, but my goodness, does this particular one look so good. One final aspect that I would mention when it comes to this seat design, of course related to the dining experience itself, is that you can shift the table over and use the bathroom throughout the meal service. Of course, being the business class, these meal services can go on for quite some time, so that can be a really very useful feature. Now, as you've no doubt already guessed by now, we're going to jump on and check out the entertainment. Now, yes, with this being an older cabin, an older aircraft, etc., it's not going to be the most crisp and large screen, but actually for an older product, I thought it was pretty decent. The screen itself was fairly responsive, the overall choice was really very good, and an area I think where Etihad are particularly strong is they even feature live TV as part of their onboard entertainment offering. Everything from the airline additionally does seem to have that nice little touch of quality. I particularly liked these headphones. They both look good and felt really very good on. Beyond that, there was then the Wi-Fi. Now, I actually took this particular screen grab from a different flight on board the Airbus A380, but you can get a bit of an idea of some of their pricing structures of the Wi-Fi. Now, I found it a little bit confusing with the business class. On my return flight, I was actually given a Wi-Fi card, so I had Wi-Fi completely free of charge. I don't know completely what their policy is on the Boeing 777, but as ever with the big Gulf carriers, they're pretty generous on the Wi-Fi front. And that, my wonderful viewers, concludes today's look at business class with Etihad on the 777. I think in terms of Etihad in general, and particularly the business class, they're absolutely fantastic as an airline. If I was looking to book with them, to be honest, I would try and avoid the Boeing 777. It's their weakest outfit, and if you would like to see them at their very best, you can check out my Airbus A380 review, with them just now located in the bottom left-hand corner. Overall though, really not a bad way to fly. Very much hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to like it and subscribe if you're not already done so, and I'll see you in another one real soon.